Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur. Welcome to my media channel. And today we have a story that I personally find to be pretty disturbing. This is definitely not something I wanted. And Crunchyroll, it appears, is one of the casualties of the streaming wars, as Sony has officially decided to buy them from AT&T for 1.175 million. I don't think that's right. I think that's supposed to be billion. I think it's close like to 1.2 billion. And not only did Sony get Crunchyroll for that 1.2 billion, they got essentially a monopoly on the anime industry. So let's show exactly what the story is. According to entrepreneur.com, Sony Pictures Entertainment and AT&T made official the sale of Crunchyroll to Funimation Global Group LLC for an amount of they keep saying million. It's not million, it's billion. If they paid only $1.2 million, then they basically just sold at a huge loss. It's 1.2 billion. But in a press release, Sony announced the transaction price will be subject to working capital and other adjustments, and the proceeds will be paid in cash at the close of the purchase. The Japanese company further noted in the newsletter that the combination of Crunchyroll and Funimation provides the opportunity to expand distribution for its content partners and expand fan-centric offerings for consumers. Now, this is what Tony Vinciquerra, I believe that's how you pronounce it, he's the president and CEO of Sony Pictures Entertainment, had to say. We are proud to add Crunchyroll to the Sony family. Through Funimation and our excellent partners at Aniplex and Sony Music Entertainment Japan, we have a deep understanding of this global art form and are well positioned to deliver exceptional content to audiences around the world. Together with Crunchyroll, we will create the best possible experience for fans and a greater opportunity for creators, producers, and publishers in Japan and elsewhere. Funimation has been doing this for over 25 years, and we look forward to continuing to harness the power of creativity and technologies to succeed in this rapidly growing entertainment segment. Now then, the article continues. For those wondering what will happen now with Crunchyroll, the platform itself said in a press release that both parties cannot yet share details until the purchase is completed with its pending regulatory approvals. Now, if the government paid attention to anime, they would not approve this, which we'll talk about in a minute, but they're not really caring about Japanese cartoons, so, this will go through. Now, they say, we know that you will have many questions about this news, and we are sorry we cannot answer all of them at the moment. Until the deal closes, Crunchyroll and Funimation will continue to operate independently. Despite this great news, we are still the same Crunchyroll we were yesterday, and we will continue to bring you more anime. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be true. So, here's the problem. Now, here's the thing. It should be known that Funimation and Crunchyroll has partnered together before in the past. So some people might think that it looks a little bit like that. Some Funimation stuff winds up on Crunchyroll. Some Crunchyroll stuff winds up on Funimation. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Here's what I think is going to happen. We're in the midst of the streaming wars, and we're getting to the point where people can't buy all these streaming services. They just can't. And for a while, it was suspected that Crunchyroll would be folded into HBO Max. Kind of made sense. AT&T owned Crunchyroll. They had a Crunchyroll tab in the HBO Max app. I mean, they already closed down DC Universe, put all the content onto HBO Max. We thought that's where it was going. And anime, despite being a niche product, is a big niche product. Anime fans tend to be very loyal. They tend to stick around with the hobby for a long time. They buy trinkets they really don't need, and I speak that from personal experience, of course. And, I thought it was in AT&T's best interest to keep it, but they decided it wasn't worth that much to them, so they sold it. And they got $1.2 billion to try to pay off their $150 billion debt. That's definitely a Band-Aid on a wound right there. But here's the big problem. I'll talk about the problem in a minute. So here, continuing what might happen, Sony eventually needs to get into the streaming wars. And Sony has a streaming service. They do. It's called Crackle. Now, most people don't have Crackle and they haven't downloaded it. If you haven't, I recommend you do. Why? Primarily, it's free. Seriously, Crackle is free. And I think Crackle does appeal to niche audiences. It has like a bunch of old horror movies, a bunch of 80 action films. Obviously, it has Sony movies. And so I think Sony might be positioning Crackle to be a player. And I also think a Crackle rebrand is coming. It'll probably be Sony Plus or something like that. Maybe PlayStation Video. I don't know. But here's the thing. They need more content, and they've just bought more content. Now, here's where it's a win for them and it's a negative for us. They also essentially bought a monopoly on anime in America. Think about it. Sony has Aniplex. They have Funimation. Now they have Crunchyroll. Aside from that, who's left? Okay, there's Viz Media. They're a big one. And I guess there's still Sentai Works. And Discotech is out there licensing all these really obscure 70s and 80s titles that no mainstream company likes. And then you have the Japanese companies themselves putting stuff on YouTube themselves. So here's the thing, though. In America, Funimation was kind of considered the monopoly of anime. If Funimation wanted the anime, good luck getting it. Funimation has deeper pockets. They're bigger. They've got a much wider footprint. So they have Sony money. That's basically what they have. So if there was an anime title that came out and Funimation wanted it, it didn't matter how much the other companies wanted it. Funimation was getting it. Heck, they've got Dragon Ball. They got Dragon Ball. Who's going to argue with that one? All these anime franchises that have come and gone, the Narutos, the Bleaches, the Inuyashas, the ones that had their day in the sun, then they went away. Dragon Ball sticks around, continues to make them the big bucks, continues to make them the leader. Now, Crunchyroll is also under Sony. I do believe that they will operate separately to an extent where Crunchyroll might handle the dubbing and subbing productions of certain shows, and Funimation will handle different ones. But the bottom line is, basically, Sony owns the anime now. Now, some anime fans will be perfectly happy with this. They'll say, hey, that's great. I don't want, the anime spread out. In fact, there's one YouTuber who will remain nameless who says the problem with anime is that the companies are keeping all the anime and there's not one place to get it. Under this deal, I would not be surprised if the Funimation app shut down. I would not be surprised if the Crunchyroll app shut down. Heck, I would not be surprised if, all this stuff just went to Crackle, and instead of having to pay Funimation and Crunchyroll, you would just download Crackle and you'd pay one fee. Or maybe VSR. That other thing that they do, now Sony basically owns VSR. That's 3 subscription services. It can all turn into one. Sounds great for the consumer, but then the problem is, that means there's going to be less bidding wars. That means if Sony decides they don't want to be streaming a title, and this has happened in the past with titles like Interspecies Reviewers, which in my opinion is not a good show, but the fact that it's being buried is very telling. There's not going to be a lot of places for these places to go. I mean, what if the Vic Mignogna lawsuit ends up going in Vic's favor and Vic wins? What if during the appeals process they make a much better case and the court finds that Funimation wrongfully terminated him? Vic Mignogna will make some money. He's not going to be voicing anime characters anytime soon. How can he? 80% of the industry is now owned by Sony. And Funimation, I believe, will be the key decision maker in this Gen Fukunaga, and he won't hire Vic, or any other voice actor who maybe shows some political views that aren't particularly popular with, their liberal group. I mean, there's reasons you want competition, but the big one, of course, is that, one of the reasons anime companies get more money and they get better animation is because you have anime companies bidding on them. I mean, now with Sony virtually owning this monopoly, guess what? There is no competition. I mean, okay, if you won't sell to Funimation or you won't sell to Sony, who are you going to go to? Funimation? We own Funimation. Aniplex? We own Aniplex. Crunchyroll? We own Crunchyroll. Sentai Works? We don't own them, but we'll own them soon. Viz? Well, maybe you can sell to Viz. Viz doesn't have the money we have. Viz is independent. We're Sony. We've got the PlayStation 5. So I think this is bad for anime fans, and you know, it's just it's a shame. Now, granted, I will be looking forward to these apps folding into Crackle, and I'll be paying less to watch my anime online. That's just the fact. That's what it is. I mean, what are you going to do, right? That's just the way it is. But I think long term this could be really, really bad for anime fans. I remember growing up. Oops, I just tilted the. Sorry. I remember growing up and we had all these different companies. We had Genion and Bandai, and we had Funimation, and we had Viz, and we had Central Park Media and Manga Corp. We had all these different companies, and they there were cases to be made. Like if one company did something that we didn't like, we could make that title fail, and then if it got relicensed down the road, someone else could pick it up. People didn't like the Deke dub of Sailor Moon. Deke eventually lost the license, and then Viz came along and offered to dub it properly. But I think those days are kind of coming to an end. And I mean, I'm gonna say something. $1.2 billion for Crunchyroll. I mean, good on the owners of Crunchyroll. They obviously are going to get a good payday on that one. I don't think it's so good for the fans. Anyway, I would like to know what all of you think about this. Do you agree that there is now a monopoly in American anime? What do you think about this? Do you think there's benefits to this that I have not talked about? Do you think there's cons to this that I have not discussed? I'd love to know. Comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.